Hey, this is Pam with Jesus Junk Journals, and today I'm going to show you my slow stitch cloth cover for my prayer war room journal that I'm working on. So come see what I've got. Okay, so once again, I was getting ready to work on something. I thought, probably ought to turn the camera on. So I'm getting ready to work on a cover, a slow stitch cover for the prayer war room journal. And so I'm gathering all these bits. I went to a flea market, of course, and I had a bag of goodies, and this was I guess a dresser scarf or something anyway. So I'm cutting the trim off of it, and so I have several and then cutting them apart. So I've got several of these, and then there's this gorgeous edge that somebody saved. So just some small pieces, which makes me happy because then I don't feel bad about cutting stuff up. That's when I cut up. But like this was already a piece, so I like that. It's already done. And I had a pocket, or it was a I think like a crocheted pot holder. So I cut this, it was 2 layers. So I cut this panel off the back. So I'm gonna use that, but also this will make a cute pocket in the journal, I think. And then I have this piece of lace that I think would make a really pretty pocket. So I'm setting that aside for pockets. So I'm just gathering some scraps and colors that I know go with what's inside the journal. And so I will just, once I gather everything, I had where did it go? I just cut a little panel off of this. These are curtains I have in my dining room, and this was a scrap from it. So I cut the deer off of it because there's that design inside the journal. So and this color does come up in the journal, so I'm going to take that and put that on the cover somewhere. There's another scrap. So anyway, so what I did is I cut a piece of just plain cotton fabric, and I made it pretty big. I made it, I think it was 11.5 by 18 inches, which should accommodate the journal being this thick. So hopefully it doesn't get any thicker than that. But anyway, so I'm going to kind of sort through this stuff, and then I will turn the camera off, come back when I've got it a little bit more organized for the next step. Okay, so I've kind of got my strips. I took a bunch of fabric and lace and went down and put them in a bowl of coffee that I made extra strong. And so I'm going to start with these base pieces, and then I'll go over the top of them with some other things. So it's the whole slow stitching thing that I've been getting interested in here lately. And so here's my flea market purchase that kind of stirred up my interest, I guess you could say. I got all these, and then I have my own, but I think it was $4, $6. Anyway, it's inspiring to see all those colors sitting there. So I'm going to get my needle ready and start doing some of the slow stitching. I've separated this out. I have, how many do I have? 3 strands of embroidery floss. So kind of one of the trademark looks, I guess you could say, of the slow stitching is this just straight stitch that connects pieces. And so I have a piece of underlying cotton fabric. I've got this doily, and then I have this fabric that I'm going to attach. And I'm just going to do a running stitch. So it doesn't have to be even, which is awesome. Okay, and then just tie a knot. Don't try to hide it. I think I don't want to waste this little bit of thread, so I'm looking at I have some buttons that were left over. I sorted all my buttons out, and then I had some leftover ones that I was going to just use up and attach. So I'll just looking for some that would show up. Ooh, that's a good one. You can spend hours going down that rabbit hole. I'm gonna look for an odd number, so 5, if I can find another one that looks like it could go there. Ooh, wait, there's a little bitty one. All right, so I'm gonna do some, see if I can get, I don't know if this is enough thread to attach 5, and I'm just gonna do it randomly, so it's not like I've thought this out that much or at all. So we'll see. Hopefully I don't give myself a problem later when I'm trying to finish this up. And my thought is this only needs a couple of go-throughs because we're not going to wear this thing. It's just going to sit there on a cover of a book. So a couple of times through ought to be enough. I wanted to turn the camera back on so you can see that I'm now getting ready to put this on. I did my buttons. I used the thread that was left and did a couple of rows on the stitching here. And so now I'm going to overlap this just, I think, a little bit. I think I will use a dark brown. Do I have a dark? Of course I do. This lady had everything. So I'm going to use a really dark brown. I think it'll show up really well with that. I think I'll pull maybe some more threads on the edges just so I can get it kind of a fringy edge. Hopefully this will pull. So I used a big needle because it's easier to thread, and I had 4 thicknesses of thread on that, so I thought, well, I'll use the big needle, but so that's easier to thread and much harder to push through the fabric because I have I had 1, 2, 3, and this one's thick. 3 layers of fabric, so that's the trade-off. A finer needle, smaller needle would have been a lot easier to get through your fabric. So keep that in mind when you pick your needle out. Okay, turn the camera back on so I can check back in with you guys. So I did a feather stitch right here, and then just some straight stitches. And this is kind of the characteristic thing you'll see on people's slow stitching. So now I'm attaching this small piece of lace with a blanket stitch. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So this is the blanket stitch. You go down a little bit. And keep it behind the needle. So the needle's actually kind of coming up inside this circle. So then when you pull it, it does that. I've got all these red dots showing up all over my hands from being poked with the needle. So I'm just going to try and outline this edge here. Okay, so I'm going to stop there with this. Let's see. And so I'm going to take it back to the back, tie a knot, because I don't want to do the whole edge. Okay, and so I need to tack it down for sure over here. Now this needs to be held down here, and so I think I'm just going to use a straight stitch. No, maybe I'll do the X's. The other thing, another stitch is the cross stitch. So and just do an X. It takes some getting used to do it sloppy, to leave knots and threads and things hanging. Just everything you've ever been taught is to tidy it, hide things, make them even, make them perfect as possible. So, and I'm sure it makes it more confusing because I'm left-handed. So there's that. So let me thank you for your patience in advance. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it because I don't feel like I've found it. That looks pretty good though. That's the thing, no matter what you do, the more you do of it, the better it looks. It starts to form a kind of a rhythm visually. Yeah, I know I'm doing that backwards. Oh well. No one will know unless they look at the back of it, and nobody will be able to see the back of it, so I feel safe. So let me just say, whenever you do something like this that's kind of random and crazy, the thing is you don't want everything to be random and crazy. So you have to have some things that are orderly. So for instance, you don't want to have all crazy pieces and then on top of it have all crazy colors. Like you wouldn't want to have the rainbow of colors and all the crazy stitches. It would just be too much. So as long as there are some things that are orderly, like the color palette, you know, if you wouldn't want the color palette to be crazy. So you keep your color palette kind of toned down or within a certain range. Same with your thread. Then you can get crazy with your pieces and parts. So the feather stitch, if you imagine, let me get a card here. If you imagine like 4 lines. So bring your needle up from the back. And so you start here with your thread coming out. You go over here to like a line across this way. You go over here. And so now you've got this loop. And so before you pull it tight, you put your needle right here and overlap that loop. And then you come over here. So there's a loop, and then you stick the needle down here and catch it before you pull it tight. So let me show you how that works, if I can do it. So you start with it coming from the back. You go over a little ways in the straight line across from it. And then you go down and pick a point in between the two. So you're making like a triangle. So right there. Maybe up a little bit. So there. Okay? And so there you go. This is going to be the basis. If you can get this, you bring your needle up from the back, circle around. So now when you pull it, that is overlapping it. And see how it can't go anywhere. And so now the next thing you do is come over here, even with that, put your needle in, do that triangle thing again. Okay. it does that. Then you come over here and put your needle in, cross here evenly. Do the little triangle thing again. Come over here. So see, you start to get a rhythm after you do it a little bit. Now, something else you can do while you're doing this is add beads to this stuff. And I'm going to be doing that here before long. Put a little seed bead here and there. And I also looked up about how to do a French knot because I have never been able to really make it look the way it looks in the picture. So I saw somebody else kind of do a cheat on it, and what they did is they just made a little seed bead where the French knot would be, and it kind of looks the same visually. In fact, the seed bead kind of looks even more neat, I think. More neat. Better. It looks better. Okay, so I'm going to stop. So I'm just going to end it there. Go around behind. And tie a knot. I know I said you can tie knots on the front. I just, for whatever reason, can't seem to make myself do it every time. But okay, so that is the feather stitch. Okay, I am back. I am trying to not bore you guys by stitching this in real time because that's just a little slightly more interesting than watching paint dry. So what I did is I went back and I sure enough did put the beads on like I mentioned. And I put them over here, and I've got a couple pieces of lace. I decided I wanted to put a little piece of this fabric on, so I got a peach. Remember I said let's keep the colors in this same little color palette. So I'm bringing the orange in, or the peach, over here, and I'm going to do the little cross stitches on this to hold it down over here at least. Okay, checking back in with you again. So I did some stitches on this, did the little cross stitch, getting ready to put this on here, and so there's this color repeat. I wish I had this wine color. I don't have that, so I'm going to have to go look for some at the store, I think, because I need to get that in there over here repeated so that it ties it all together. So I'm going to do the chain stitch. Actually, I'll come up from the back. So you just make a loop, put the needle back close to where it came out, come back up to just a small stitch, and you're going to jump over that thread. So it's like that. And then you make another loop, put your needle close to where it came out, go forward, and it's not straight, and I'm wanting to make it straight, but that's okay. I'm not supposed to be straight. So again, where it came out, go forward a little bit. I hope you can see that chain showing up there. This is a pretty quick and easy one. I guess they all are pretty quick and easy. except for that French, that French knot I can't seem to conquer, but Okay, and then I'm just going to finish it by sticking the needle down, and then I'll tie the knot in the back on this one. So I always want to use my thread up, so I'm looking for little places to just do some quick stitching. So I think I'll just going to do some little short. My husband's trying to get the dogs to bark so they'll get me to come downstairs. It's time to go lay on the bed. They get to come in and lay on our bed every night and watch TV with us. And they love it. Boy, you say, you want to go lay on the bed? And they just stampede into the bedroom. So I guess that's time. That's the time. So okay, so I'm back to work on this cover some more. And I remembered that I had this trim that I bought years ago that never got used because it was super expensive, and so I could never find anything precious enough to use it on. And here I am with this, and it's perfect because I can just use a little bit of it. And so I think I got a yard, and there's 2 of them. I got a yard of each, I think. And here's the other one. So I can use them just a little bit here and there and feel like I really got my money's worth. I probably have had this for 15 years, so anyway, hilarious that I am hoarding that, but I guess we all do that from what I see on YouTube and the other places that people talk. It's like you get this stuff and you don't want to let it go because you don't know if you're ever going to get anything as wonderful as that again. And so in the meantime, you don't get to enjoy it because it's hidden away in a closet somewhere. And then I have buttons picked out that I wanted to put on. I think I want to put those on the cover. I'm just thinking that if this sits anywhere, it's going to be, the cover will be on the side that's up. So I don't want to put them on the back. It's just so weird when you do this stuff on camera. You just don't realize, when you're just doing it, you don't realize things like how long it takes you to thread a needle or how clumsy you are when you do this or that. But boy, when you put the video camera on, you start to become really aware of every little mishap, and you know. So I'm going to stagger these flowers. I think I'll just go ahead and put that there. Okay, so okay, so I've got my buttons there, and I think that I'm going to do a yo-yo for the back, maybe a couple. Here's my circle I've got to cut a pattern. I took this and put it in some coffee just to darken it a little bit. Okay, good enough. I think I can see that good enough to cut it. And, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can make them any size. The one I watched used a CD as a pattern for a circle. I didn't want I wanted a smaller yo-yo, so I just cut it around a bowl that I had, a bottom of a bowl. And so this circle makes it yo-yo that big. So a CD just makes it a little bit bigger yo-yo. So, I mean, it reduces quite a bit by the time you get done sewing with it. And you want to use these long needles. I don't want to pretend like I just have been doing these for years and years. I just learned how to make a yo-yo. And I watched a video, and the lady talked about, and you could tell she was a quilter, and she said to use these long needles. So I kind of debated, do I really need a special needle or can I just use a regular needle? And I'm glad I got it because it really does. It's a lot easier to embroider, and it's a lot easier to do these yo-yos. Okay, so all you do is you turn the edge up 1/4 inch. And this long needle, sorry for the noise. I'm over the garage and my husband just keeps coming in and out. I'm not sure why. So you just do kind of a big stitch. I have to be careful because I get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm going to keep it small. So I'm going to pull it through. So anyway, so this long needle just lets you go longer. Gather up the edge longer, I guess. I don't know, it just seems to really make a big difference in the ease of it. Okay, so once you've gone all the way around, you just start to pull and gather it up. And then you push these ends down so they point in towards the center, towards themselves. Work those around a little bit more. And that's it. That is the puff. That is the yo-yo, sorry. I'm just adjusting it so that that center is dead center. And I'm pulling it tight, and then I'm going to tie a knot back here. Now, if you were going to do a quilt, you wouldn't do this. You would tie an inside knot in that goes just into the interior of the yo-yo and doesn't show on either side, but I'm not concerned about that, so this works fine. I wonder if I need 3 of these. Maybe I need a group of 3. Let me see if this black one looks good with the other 2. Yeah, it's not too bad with the other 2. I didn't like it by itself. It just looked like a big wad of fabric, but it's kind of cute with the other 2. So I was on Pinterest looking at some examples of slow stitching. There's some beautiful stuff out there. And they had a thing, actually it was on the trends for the coming year, and they said one of the big trends is going to be embroidery. I thought, well, there you go. And crocheting, which I can't crochet, but maybe I'll learn. I do like to see the crochet on the edge of like on these old handkerchiefs, and on tea towels and so on. And I thought, well, I don't know that I'd ever want to crochet anything major, but maybe just the edge on something. There's just, oh my goodness, so many things you can do with a junk journal, isn't there? And when you throw fabric in, it just multiplies the possibilities. I'm pulling this kind of tight. When I put the needle in the edge, I'm pulling it out so that I stretch this yo-yo out to the edge. Okay, so here it is with the yo-yos sewn on. And then I found this little piece of trim that I've had forever. I've got a bunch of it, so I cut a little piece off, and I think I'm just going to stitch it on here. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I've got this rayon ribbon that, what's it called? Hug and Snug or something like that. I think I'm going to take it and just gather it and stitch a piece of it on. Just doesn't match exactly, but it's close enough. So I'm just going to take a piece of it and run a gathering stitch up on it. I've got this black thread. I think that's fine. I'm just going to run a wide let me see. So I'm just gonna, let's see, sew that there. And then grab this end, just gather it up the way I want it. Sort of evenly, hopefully. Gathered like that. And then I'm gonna do a tack here on this end, and I'll just leave that tail. And I wanna sew that on, but I'm gonna use white thread. This is super loose woven, and it'll come apart pretty easily. So I think I'm gonna come up beside it and maybe weave through it a few times. Let's see if I can literally rein it in. I have all this stuff from years past projects. I'm sure you do too. And it's like, I don't even remember why I bought this, or why in the world what was I thinking I would do with this, because it's so crazy, so loose. But I've hauled it around. We moved from Kansas City to Indiana to Arkansas within 2 years. And somehow this made the cut. I got rid of all this other stuff, but somehow this I kept. I don't know why. Okay, so I think that's plenty to hold that on. I'm looking at it to see if I'm finished. I think I'm going to do some stitches now. Let's see. And I'm going to use this kind of pinkish. Okay, so I'm going to do a chain stitch, which I found out I was doing it wrong. You're actually supposed to do the loop, and then when you go back in, you go inside that loop for the next one. And I was going on the outside, but I have since looked it up, and that is the way it's done. So. Okay, so I have stopped the stitching. I found a green that went with this green. I did some stitching to tie that in. And let's see, is that all I did? I think so. So what I'm gonna do now, and I'm not sure how it's gonna work, but I'm gonna stamp Prayer War Room on a piece of cloth and see how much room it takes up, and see if I can put that on the cover some way or other. So I'm going to use a small font. Hopefully this comes out. I'm going to do a couple, so just in case. In fact, I may do 3. So I think that would go right there. I'll go ahead and kind of want to rip it so it's already frayed. Hopefully that goes okay. Or some of them. Okay, so that actually could even be smaller at the top. If I just pull some more threads. Okay, I'm gonna just stitch that on with and just take some small And no, they're not right next to the other one. And that's it on that. Now, I think, you know, it's going to be, when I actually use this cover, I may have to adjust a couple of things. I was looking at this rose ribbon here, and I think it's probably going to end up on the spine, which is fine. Because if it lays somewhere, I just didn't want it to be on the back. So I have a feeling it'll be on the spine. But what I was thinking is, once I get the actual journal, I may have to move it either forward or one way or the other. But I had one more thing. So I decided I did want the word journal on there. So what I did is I took the rayon, that Hug and Snug or Snug and Hug, and just stamped the word journal, and then I just tacked it over the bottom of that. So I've got my journal on there. So anyway, I appreciate you watching, and I'd love it if you would click the like button. Think about subscribing. It'd be awesome, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.